All right. What's happening now? I can't see y'all's names yet. um, let's just go ahead and go. I want to revisit something that I talked about a while ago. The whole idea of Generation X. And we know that X is supposed to be the unknown. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's just weird. You see in the Bible that, they talked about King Herod would, to try to locate the Christ child, he put out an edict to kill all of the male children, right? So I want to go back and revisit just the whole thing of Generation X. Now, technically, Generation X is supposed to be around, it's supposed to apply to people born between the years of roughly 1965 and 1983, 84, somewhere around there. One thing you can say for sure about that generation, which is my generation, is that if nothing else came out of it, which there was plenty that came out of it, but it took a little known art form and turned it into a world, a world phenomenon, hip hop. And that says volumes about the potential of that generation. And it then makes sense why, kind of coming towards the tail end of the birth range for that generation, there's something introduced called crack cocaine. And crack cocaine has an effect on the music over time, and it has an equally powerful effect on that generation. Now, if I'm correct in my correlation between what the Bible says about this, about the hunting for the male children, and of course, the literal-minded person would say, well, that story was talking about what happened then. But we're a little more educated group here, so we know these stories are not supposed to be considered historical in a literal sense. So what if it was really talking about present times, and especially applying to Generation X? Well, there was a need to hunt for the male children. Okay? Now you look at this, crack cocaine comes out, and I want to backtrack for a second though, and I want to say this. My parents grew up not poor, but poor. That wasn't even enough to put an O and an R on the end. Poe. But what's interesting is that my mother came out of a single parent home. My father came out of a single parent home. His father had died when he was a baby. But one thing they did not have was a concept. Y'all stay with me on this. They did not have a concept called hood. The concept of hood, H-O-O-D, did not exist. Okay? It was, people had different statuses, you know. Okay. With Generation X, what is amazing, because my father is he's considered to be the pre-World War II era baby, and my mother was a baby boomer. Well, the generation that comes after the baby boomers is Generation X, us. But for their generations, like I said, it was about status. You had certain people who were higher in the black community, and everybody knew, oh, that's so and so. Oh, they come from good stock, you know, good stock. Something was created though. Several things were manufactured for our generation, and one of them was a concept of being hood. Now, understand this. This did not even exist in our vocabulary until really the 90s, but the concept of it really took hold in the 80s. So that being hood then meant an acceptance of a situation. See, like I said, my parents were dirt poor, but the people who would take on the idea of being hood actually were not nearly as poor as my parents, some of y'all's parents, some of your grandparents. But they took on an identity that was lesser than even the most the poorest person in the worst third world country you can think of. That's the irony of this. Now I know what I'm talking about when I say the people who we consider poor are nowhere near as poor. I used to be everywhere. Every project, because where I'm from, see, in Texas, we don't really truly have projects. You have low income apartment complexes, but you don't really have, like where I'm from, you have literally the projects. We had Lee Walker Heights, Hillcrest, Diva View, Pisgah View, Livingston, you had, Erskine, you had Klondike. So we had quite a few projects. Oaknall. So I used to be in all these places because of the creative lifestyle I had. And I used to go in people's apartments and I would be amazed. I remember going in one woman's apartment and the China hut she had was so big, it literally took up a whole wall. Nice furniture, big screen TV, plush carpet. I was like, man. So it's not that she was struggling. Now, I'm not saying that everybody that's in the projects is not struggling. Don't mistake what I'm saying or misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm saying that the great scientific experiment and project that was created with Generation X was to create a mentality. A mentality. A mentality of what it is to be hood. Okay? And then, see, you've always had these rifts. You know, we hear about the rift between Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. You know, the rifts between these other, but this is nothing in comparison. What was created with Generation X was calamitous. Because instead of a figurehead, it created ideologies or systems of opposition, to where a person would consider themselves hood because of where they came from. And then they would start to glorify being the definition that was given to them of what hood is. This is diabolical. Okay? All right? Now that's as far as I'm gonna go with it. I'm just gonna lay the foundation. Fast forward now, we're in 2018. My generation, Generation X, some of my peers are grandparents by now. Some of the folks I went to school with got children who've already finished college. You know, so we're now 1 to 2 generations deep from Generation X. Okay? So if this mentality was seeded and has been passed down, now we're going to fast forward to this new age of information where everything's plentiful, 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 plentiful. And now let's go and put on the hat of metaphysical information and everything else that attaches to that and associates, okay? Because such a masterful job was done of seeding the idea of being hood, now people who have been indoctrinated by that mindset, when they get wind of any of this type of information, it is only sitting on top of a traumatic mind programming system that has already been put in place and never has been addressed. And because it hasn't, the ear becomes more sensitive to what sounds more hood, what seems to feed this GMO entity that has been seeded into me. And then the danger of that is a malevolent spirit then becomes like the Pied Piper. You know? Becomes another Jim Jones. See, when I say beware of Jim Jones, I'm not talking about a single person. Jim Jones is a spirit. The spirit of Jim Jones. See, the spirit of Jim Jones is this. Like I said, you had these Generation X children who were traumatized, never worked through it. Either had children who went on to have more children who carried the trauma, or they just got older and festered more in the trauma and become the representation of this Jim Jones spirit. And then you have the people who come up under, who have not had the opportunity to live long enough to experience what it means to have discernment. and they hear the familiar buzz, frequency that gets their attention, and they latch on. And now something far greater than, or far worse than crack cocaine could have ever been, has been created. A new drug. A new drug. And this drug can take on all types of names. Hopelessness, delusion, false sense of grandeur, anything you want to put on it that is basically superficial and is a facade. And a lot of it stems from this great rift that was created between so-called being hood and so-called being suburban or square or whatever. Something diabolical. So that now you see this Jim Jones spirit is pervasive. It's so pervasive that it can take information and twist it to where it comes out as a misrepresentation of the science that is really given. To where people literally buy into an idea that they've just been trapped into something, and the best way to deal with this is just to give up. But now think about this. This is what people say. You don't need to study. You don't need to da da da. But let me show you how you can benefit from studying. Okay? Some people ain't old enough to even know about or have been around. I wasn't alive yet when this happened, but I damn sure know about Guyana and the people who followed Jim Jones. Listen to me. Followed this fool to an island, took their children. To a premature death. Now you got fools now on some island somewhere. You got people on the mainland, but there's a constant that's still this pervasive nature of humans to follow something based on nothing more than trust and belief. And all subjects to mind control, mind control, mind control, mind control. And what's so ill about it is you will literally think that you are the captain of your ship when you are being steered remotely. And again, this can all go back to introduction of crack cocaine, Generation X, and the concept of I'm hood. And see, I'm gonna say this. I have walked in several shoes. So this is not coming from somebody who is like, as some people, it's funny I hear what they say, Poindexter. This is not some Poindexter point of view. I'm consider myself an intellectual who will slap the fire out of you if you try me. And that's not to try to sound tough. It's just the reality. See, we live in a world where we always think you got to be one or the other. You either got to be intellectual or you got to be hood. Well, see, I grew up in a home where my mother was, they taught us you got to have two identities at least. You got to have the identity for your professional setting, and then you got, who you really are, and it's the ability to know how to turn it on and off when you got to. And my mama was from a neighborhood called East End, and when you talk to my mother, she could be very polished and this and that, but my mother was called the East End Bandit for fighting, So there's a misconception that hood means that you hard, and that's how you get your block knocked off, by underestimating people. And it's a level of ignorance. It's more about you being able to be divergent, a little bit of everything. You need to be we'll use the word hood at times. We'll use the connotative. Yet you also need to be able to, be a critical thinker. You need to be an intellectual. There's this misconception that you have to be this or that. And that is a Western paradigm. It is to categorize people and to put them into a box. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're that. That's why I'm always tickled when somebody try to think they figure me out. Oh, you're this, you're that. You'll never know me. Never. Because you got more time that needs to go into just figuring yourself out. You damn sure ain't gonna figure me out. And that's the concept of the Western paradigm. You always got to fit into some type of box, some category. So I'm gonna say this to more of this is for whoever it's for, but especially to younger people, because I'm telling you, I see this trend, man, and it's just people gotta take the journey that they supposed to take. But it does help. It does help though to have a different perspective, because somebody might just hear a different perspective and kind of look at things a little differently. You need to beware of the Jim Jones mentality. And if you don't know who Jim Jones is, go and Google it. Look him up. Look up the whole situation. It was a travesty. I mean, it wasn't a travesty. It was tragic, is what it was. That people could be this gullible. And I look around, man, it's like, and people would never associate themselves with the level of gullibility of those people who took, who basically gave up their lives over some BS, But I'm telling you, it is at an alarming rate. It's not no few hundred, it is thousands who have taken on this mentality. And let me say this, for all the deep people who want to get into their metaphysical bag and this and that, who say, oh, you're worried about living and this and that. I want you to understand something. You can kid yourself all you want about who you are and what you are. But understand this. If you're in a human body, there are certain limitations that come along with being in a human body. And there's a great degree of uncertainty about everything that happens around you. The misconception is that when you get a certain degree of knowledge and whatever you want to call it, you have the ability to control your surroundings. And what you do to a degree, let me repeat, to a degree. But more so, what it's about is being able to control how you respond. How you become more aware of your surroundings is more important than controlling your surroundings. It's your ability to be aware of them. My high school coach used to say, I'm not worried about y'all getting out of breath or getting tired. I'm more concerned with how fast y'all can recover. See, this Jim Jones mentality has taught a lot of people that you can mysteriously not get tired. Oh, I don't get tired. I don't get tired. Okay? When the truth is that you're going to get tired when you experience a human experience. That's part of the contract. The key is how you respond to the fatigue. So all the knowledge you're gathering and all the experimentation is training. It's like you train a muscle. You train a muscle to be able to endure. Okay? And the more that it can endure, the more it grows. But thinking that you can build muscle without having to endure fatigue is the most idiotic thing in the world. And it's the way that a lot of people approach their lives. And you can look at a person and tell if they really work out. I mean, you can go in there and you can tell everybody all day, oh yeah, I'm going to the gym. I'll be in the gym all the time. I'm looking at you like, man, well, when you gonna start working out when you go to the gym? You be in the gym, but when are you gonna start working out? Or better yet, when are you gonna actually start training? It's the difference between just working out and training. Training is directed, intentful effort. And working out is just going in there, just an activity. Just something so you can tell people I go to the gym. But I'm looking at you, and I'm like, man, where's the muscle development? This Jim Jones mentality that many are adopting is leaving you with atrophied muscle. You talk a good game. You talk about how you bench press. But I'm looking at you like, I think if I thump you, your whole skeletal system might crack. You know? So, it is best to remain humble. And humble does not mean you go around here and let people disrespect you. Humble means that you understanding that this is an ongoing learning process. You know, it's an ongoing learning process. Put less time into trying to convince people of how advanced you are and how much you're over whatever you think you're over, and direct more of your energy to actually looking at yourself, observing yourself, critiquing yourself, and working on yourself. And you're not on nobody's clock but your own. But your clock stops the minute that you think you have arrived. Trust me, player, your clock has just stopped. Time just ran out on you. The moment you think that you have arrived, time just ran out. You know, there's a lot of people who are hurt and they just basically crying out for help. Let me show you an example of crying out for help. When you go online and post comments about how, oh, I'm past this stuff and this and that, and you know, it is really the most idiotic thing in the world, because I mean, to truly master something, let me tell you something. To truly master something, it when they talk about let your light shine, this little light of mine, I'm going, truly mastering something, man, you don't have to tell nobody. You'll sweat it out your pores. You will exude it, you know. When you truly, it's just like I go back to the gym analogy. When you truly have been in the gym, you know, you ain't got to tell nobody you work out. They're going to come tell you. Hey, man, where you work out at? You know? So, just a little something to chew on. Not enough emphasis is put on critical thinking. Why? Because people don't want you to think. People don't want you to think, because you just might spot the bullshit. Hey, it's Brother Jamal, mastersofthecosmos.com. As always, I'm reminding you to stay down till you get up, and when you get up, stay down. And if there ever was a time that you really need to you need to exercise critical thinking, this is the time. All right, peace.